Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. This is Walking in This World, week 2, Discovering a Sense of Proportion with me, Charlene Anders Shallalla, a creativity coach from Germany, and the lovely Joe Holmes. Hi, Joe. How are you doing
Hi,
today?
I'm doing good, thank you. I've just woken up and I'm ready to start the day. How are you doing?
I'm really good. I've actually been awake for a couple of hours, but I am an hour ahead of you, so it's kind of like an unfair advantage. So, week 2, how did it go for you? Were you able to do all the tasks,
Yeah, I
morning
did all of
pages?
the tasks in the end, and I didn't do like last week. I was reading the essay each day, then I did the task. But what I found is that I wasn't reading the essay until the very end of. I read the first essay, but I was then doing the task and then reading the essays afterwards because I was just eager to write. And it made me reflect a lot this week because the ideas of thinking about your realistic self and the different boundaries that made me think a lot about the things I have in my life that aren't really necessarily to do with my realistic self. And every time, say when we went through the artist way together, social media came up as a big thing to me. I was writing, why am I posting things on Instagram? Is this really what I want to do? And it just kept coming up and up and up. And when I was writing all of the different things that um I either wished or dreamed of or wanted, none of that included social media. So it added a very new perspective to me.
That's really interesting. I have to say, like the very first essay is entitled Identity, and my favorite quote comes from this, and it's very, very short, and it's just art is not linear, and neither is the artist's life. I like that so much. My CV is anything but linear, so it's always nice, like to have this kind of. It's always nice if somebody just gives you permission, like it is okay. And talking about the tasks, like the task for that essay, identify your identity. There are 10 questions she wants you to answer, and the first one starts when I was a small child, I dreamed of growing up to be, and then there's a blank space. And I have to say that these types of questions, they are so hard for me. I mean, living with complex PTSD, coming from a very abusive home, this is like, it is such a tough question. And it goes on. Like in my childhood, my interest in art was encouraged. Question mark is like, no. I was like really busy trying to survive. And what I realize is that I used to balk at these and like even close the book and say, okay, obviously this is not for people who have experienced things like I have. And I just thought, okay, this is not for me. And it took me years to understand that I can actually change an exercise, that I can change a task, and that I do not have to go through every question. And so with this one, I just left out the first 4 or 5 questions because they were just too painful to answer. And then I just dove in and answered the questions that felt like I could really get value from answering them.
Yeah. And did you find an increased sense of value in answering them and the way you approached it? What did you get out of that task in the end?
So in the end, it was a reminder of being playful. Even when you do something like working through a structured workbook like this, or like Walking in This World, or like the artist's way, you have to be playful and you have to adjust things so that you have a chance of getting value out of that. And that alone was immense valuable for me.
Yeah. And it's good to know that you can bend the rules to suit your own needs at times. And I think that's so necessary. And we should always be aware that if something's going to hurt us, that we can change the rules rather than close the book completely. So that's a clear growth in acknowledging that, okay, well, I could answer this question, but it would take me too long and it would be too painful. And I know the answer. And I think for you, you know the answer to those questions. And you
Yeah.
know it so well that it doesn't need to be written in front of you and to create more pain. And I think that adds a deeper layer of reflection, because me answering those questions probably had the opposite effect, where I was answering them and luckily I was like, well, I wasn't really met with much adversity. I had support. And one thing that my parents have always told me is that they'll support me. So looking at that made me extremely grateful. And in in a completely different way, I think both of those approaches to the task were motivated us as people, because it made us realize the points in which we started. And for me, that point in which I started was good. I had that advantage, so now I need to make sure I fulfill that and do the best I can to prove to myself as a child, look, you had this and other people haven't, so go and do it. And I think in your way, you'll want to prove to yourself that you can do what you want, and that childhood has hurt, but you can do a lot with that hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well put. Really well put. Yeah. It's like, I mean, if we talk about life purpose and things like that, like triumph over trauma is definitely on that list, and it's probably number one. So, and I do actually see it as a victory to change a task so that it actually helps me. And the essay afterwards, after this task's becoming larger, and I could have underlined each and every sentence in there. I love this essay so very much. And do you remember the when she says that? I mean, I know it's a well-known image, like when you have three blind people um, touching an elephant.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful because one says, "Oh, like they touch a leg, and it's like, oh, it's really sturdy and tough, and it must be a tree." And then the next one like touches the trunk, and then the other one, like I think the tail or something like that. And I really like how she uses that image um, in a way like how we as artists are perceived by the world. So like, so you're a writer, so people think you're a writer, and it's like, yeah, I am a writer and I also do this and that. And like I mean, we were talking a lot about labels
Yeah,
on the
I was just
artist
going
way.
to say that, and
Yeah.
how all the different labels we could possibly have and experience. And I know in the essay I was thinking that, well, it's so true, because we are all of those things to us, but for the different people we encounter in different ways, we're completely different, and those labels can, but people don't want to do the thought process to see you as everything you are, because that would be so overwhelming if we walked down the street and we saw every person for everything they are. If we saw an elephant everywhere, I mean, if we saw literal elephants everywhere, we'd be a bit shocked. And I think in the same way, if we saw everything everyone could do, it would be, I mean, it would be magical for a start. And I think we'd treat people with more respect and kindness, and I think that would go a long way. But I know you and I, when we when we did do the artist way, we were talking about the labels and how that you can be seen as one thing, and that might be the one thing that you don't really feel like that day.
Yeah, that is really very true. And then it gets frustrating, and it's like people don't really see me for who I am, and all this like all this negativity happens. And I really like the idea to say I'm an elephant slash I'm an artist, and if you just if you just touch my leg, you will actually think that I am just a writer. And that is actually why I like it so much to call myself a transmedia artist, because there are so many media forms in there.
Yeah, and I think that gives you so much freedom. And I know that I thought, well, I'm not an artist because I don't paint pictures. But then when I look at my work in photography, I think, well, I wouldn't call the technical aspect of photography isn't what I'm good at. It's the it's the actual artistic relationship I have with taking the photos.
Hmm.
So the whole idea of identity is just, it's like when I was last night, I was taking photos of people, and everyone sees you as that photographer label, and people bump into me and say, oh, you're the photographer. I'm like, well, I've never called myself a photographer. I carried a camera around, and you're a photographer. But to me, that's not who I am. So it's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so in your case, they touched another part of the elephant. It's like, oh, photographer. So, and I don't think it's people don't like it's nothing that happens out of people want to be judgy or whatever. It's just what they see of you.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, but I really, really love that image.
And we
I,
judge ourselves more, for sure.
yes.
And when they say that, it's not them judging us, it's us judging ourselves and thinking, well, is this who I am now? Is this who I feel like? Is this who I want to be? And that's where the judgment comes in. That's me thinking, well, am I really good enough at photography to be a photographer? I've got that stage with my writing. I can say I'm a writer, but I can't do that with that thing yet. But you'll just see it anyway because I'm holding the thing. And that's how I feel. And a quote I loved in next to one of the essays is, if a plant cannot live according to its nature, it dies, and so a man. And that's by Henry David Thoreau. And
Mhm.
I just thought, wow, I mean, the idea of nature, because I've been, as I told you last week, I was thinking about death a lot lately. And I've been thinking, well, I mean, that's to truly live to your nature. I mean, you can sit by as a plant that doesn't flower, and you can be there through the seasons, but unless you blossom and grow plants, grow flowers in your own life, then you're not living according to your nature, whether you are alive or not.
Yeah, well put. I just found, I mean, I really like the idea of wisdom is everywhere. And you know this already. I have one guilty pleasure, and that is Queer Eye, watching Queer
Yeah,
Eye.
I was watching that yesterday too, and that's so funny because I don't watch it regularly, but my sister was in the lounge and my parents were walking in thinking, what is she watching? And I came and sat down and we're watching it while having lunch. So what's it about the show that you love so much?
Um, there's, oh my God, I love everything about it, but there's one thing so that I don't lose that train of thought. One of their heroes was a guy who had lost his spouse 10 years ago. And they were trying like to shake him up a little and to say, you know, it is okay for you to keep living. And your wife, your late wife, would definitely not want you to stop living. And he said something, I'm getting chills. He said, you know what? It's so easy to exist and so hard to live.
Yeah, that is
And
a that is an amazing quote.
that from somebody like you're watching a TV scripted reality thingy, and there's this wisdom that just hits you. It was, yeah, it was completely beautiful. And I love this show so very much because I think they did a tremendous job casting these five characters, the hosts. And when I think I'm probably too conform, and like I'm scared to actually go against society. I
Yeah.
sometimes really think like, okay, what would Jonathan do now? And so things like that,
Yeah.
and it helps. It really helps.
And it really relates to the theme of identity
Yeah.
and thinking about, can I be this thing and can I be that thing as well? And I know that when I watched one yesterday, and it was a Texan rancher, a big
Yeah.
cowboy type man, and he's like, well, can I be this masculine and can I look good and express myself and wear this? And it raised very important questions that you can bring over to your life. And I know that's something I've felt over the years. I have this perception of myself. I want to, say, like, I want to be masculine, for example, but then can I wear this because it's a checkered shirt with a big flower on it? And I'm like, well, does it make a difference? And it really does make you question the choices you make and think, well, can I have more fun? Can I be more creative doing it this way and know that it doesn't change who I am? And once you get to that process of thinking, then the world opens up a lot more and these boundaries we have go away. And like you, I'm not someone who, I challenge different thinking in society, but it really does make you think, well, why do we think like that? Why would we make that choice if we could, if we can, for example, in self-care, when they're looking after themselves and making themselves look better, but that's not just a vanity project. That's making sure you're clean and you really do look after yourself. And I think that can be easily overlooked because it doesn't fit with the identities we have.
Yeah.
We think, okay, we need to be busy, so I don't have time for this. But what I noticed this week also is I was doing different rituals as I was preparing to be creative and sit down and write.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get other things right around me. We can call that procrastination, but to me it was a very positive procrastination. And I made a very funny spelling error when I was writing my morning pages where I wrote rituals, but with a W, so it's right, so it's in writing.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did is I changed my chair that was at my desk. I had one of those office chairs with wheels on that spin around,
Mm-hmm.
and it's comfy, it's nice, but every time I tried to write, I would turn my chair, put my feet up on my bookshelf, slouch back, and I'd spin a bit. And I realized how distracting that was, and it wasn't helping me. It wasn't helping me focus. So I changed to an ordinary dining room chair that I found that we kept and don't use anymore. And I've put it right there at my desk, and it doesn't move, and it's not as comfy. It's more upright. But I found when I go and sit at my desk and do something now, I don't get distracted because I can't physically move and my attention's being focused right down on what I'm doing.
I love that. I really do because people still associate the process of making art with like this, I don't know, almost metaphysical experience, and you have to be in the right mood and all of this. And for you, it was just like changing the chair that actually helped you. This is beautiful.
And I love the way you talk about the metaphysical existence, because that's one thing I always say, being at home with my mum a lot. She always, I thought you were going to do this work. I thought you're going to do writing now. And I'm like, well, I'm not in the mood. When it happens, it happens. And I know when I say that, I'm just lying. It's just the way. And because she won't understand, she can be, well, okay, you have to be in the right mindset. And I'm like, well, that's not actually true, is it, Joe? I'm just saying. And so me noticing about writing different things I could change. One of the things was changing the chair. The other thing was getting a safe to put my phone in that had a timer on it. But I decided just to do a screen timer in the end. But I changed the chair, and what an impact that had, because not only did that mean I was more comfortable, but it also challenged the idea of the mindset and told me that there were steps I could take to tell myself that writing was something I wanted to do, and I want to do it that much that I'll just change my chair over.
I applaud you for that. That's really, 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 really great. I love it.
And how was your check-in? How did you find yourself doing the morning pages and tasks this week? Because last week you mentioned that the morning pages, you didn't, I mean, that value must have been there for you, but you didn't feel it as much after doing it for so long. How's that experience been reflecting on that this week?
So, I mean, we started talking about it in terms of relationship last week, and I think that is very, very fitting. I take the morning pages and the miracles that they provide as granted. And I just started with a new client, and I get all my clients to write morning pages or meaning pages, depending when they say I can't do it in the morning. And so I saw him, and he was like, the morning pages, they work so beautifully. And I'm like, really? That's interesting. And at the same time, I could slap myself because I know that they work. It's like, it's like, so yeah, I am appreciating them more, and I actually like to look them over, not really rereading what I wrote, but just to look over the 3 pages that I have every day and to go like, wow, that's really, there's stuff there that I didn't know. And that's something that I very, very much appreciate. I do would like to talk about the second task, which is a really long one, the size shifting.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've done these types of exercises now since 2006, and so I know my map, my creative map quite well. And if I let myself admit it, I think I have a secret gift for blank space. And the thing that was really tough to admit, but it didn't happen now, but I realized that I did, is actually I do have a gift, or I think I have a secret gift for creating creative business.
Yeah.
And that was actually something that I also noticed, like working with clients, that I really, really, really want to help them when it comes to generating income, healthy finances, and so on and so forth. And so, in the middle of December, I have no idea whether I told you that or not. In the middle of December, I applied for a certification program to become a certified business coach, among other things.
Yeah.
And that has just started.
Brilliant.
And it's like it's brutal, it's full time, and I definitely can't take on any more new clients right now. But it's beautiful. It's so beautiful, and I can feel the how my brain like makes all these connections to artists, and how we are so well equipped to have a thriving business. And I know I'm going against every cliche out there.
You're 100% right though, because I really feel that, and I know that you've spoken a lot before about the stigma around money as an artist and business as an artist, but I think you're right. It's such a strength, but it's a strength that we don't always realize. And I'm glad that you realize that and that secret gift, and I'm glad you're pursuing it, because whether it's the right thing for you or not, you only know over time. But what you're telling me now is that it is exciting because it adds a new perspective and add layers, further layers to what you can do, and adds more labels to what you can do. I mean, the elephant just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Absolutely, yes. I like that. We are growing the elephant. Yeah, either the elephant is growing or we're actually zooming out and seeing more of it. But I
Very
think
true.
that's nitpicking.
Yeah.
And regarding so the check-in was I did an artist date. I just discovered that Arte has all those documentaries that you can just stream for free on their website. And I decided I have 2 hours to fill as an artist date. I'm just gonna watch documentaries for 2 hours. And so I did, I watched one on the vocal trinity, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, and Celine Dion, which was so interesting. And Patti Smith, oh my God, I love her so much. She's such a muse. And then I had a couple of minutes left, and I watched a bunch of short documentaries. And with some of them were not to my taste, but some were like every one of them was like opening a window into another topic, into another person's life. And I felt that was a really rewarding, inspiring artist date.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think documentaries can be really inspiring. And I like how that you took the time to do that, because it's something that, when you think artist day, is something that doesn't require a massive amount of effort. But I think in a way that's good, because all the effort is going on inside your head.
Yeah.
One thing I've been doing is watching history documentaries lately and feeling how inspired I've been to write things based on that. And you think of the amazing characters and locations and different ideas of different people and forces coming together. And you think, well, this hasn't really been explored, and there's so much scope. And
Yeah.
in a way, I don't think at any point I sat down and thought, well, let's write all of that and let's try and write this, write that. But it made me think, well, these ideas are coming. I can still have this inspiration and creativity and feel passionate about what I'm doing, and it's a good reminder. I think this week, my artist date was yesterday. I played a game called The Sims where you have your own characters and world. And it took a long time to re-download because I'd taken it off my laptop to make room for photos and different things. But I put it back on and I sat down yesterday and played some in the afternoon. And it was fun in it. It was seeing the characters on the screen. I always find a great creative practice to think about, you know, what I found frustrating to start with was the characters were doing things by themselves. They have this little window of all the actions they're going to take. I want them to do that thing, and then it just came, no, they're doing this thing now anyway, and you can't stop that. And I'm like, well, that's annoying. I want to change that. So it made me approach my writing thinking, well, how much of me is controlling the characters and how much am I letting the characters exist? And so, I mean, that's quite a philosophical question, whether that's something that can be, but it was a dilemma that I've been thinking about since there. So that's where my artist date inspired me.
I like that. Really a lot. Playing something that and just like really playing for the fun of it and
Yeah,
not with in order to do something. So yeah, I like that a lot. And speaking of writing, so I did I am very, very much interested in Myers-Briggs personality type indicators. And every now and then, like I get like a flash of panic. And actually, I had to smile when I found in Walking in This World, don't panic about panic. It's like, she says, your panic does not mean you are crazy, just that you feel it. And every now and then, and I do believe that every artist knows that there's this wave of panic that just overwhelms me, and it's like my characters are two-dimensional, they're not like built out enough, fleshed out enough. And so I sat down and I started to profile my characters, like using Myers-Briggs, profiling my characters. And that was so much fun. I mean, it wasn't really an artist date because I was technically
yeah,
working,
but I
but it was a lot of fun. And I do believe that, I mean, when we're talking about how much does a character control you or you control a character, I do believe that the best moments in writing is when a character completely takes over.
100%,
I
100%.
live for that.
I agree with you completely. And I'm glad that you did that exercise because it's something I've always thought about and thought, well, I know people swear by writing these complex character profiles, but I know that they're there. But it's so good that when you get stuck, you come to a point and you think, what should happen next? You can look back to your notes and what you said about them, and it would trigger something, it trigger a new idea. And one thing I've done, I haven't actually sat down and typed words of my novel, but one thing I have done is I'm very close to the end. And because I know I'm close to the end, in my mind, what's happening is not very much, but I don't want to skip to the ending. And I know a lot's going to come out from the first section. So I thought I need to stop with this thinking that I can just write a few more sentences in the end because I'm not there yet. This end process is actually where the story is, where I find some of the most interesting parts of that story are, and not so much in the front when I was just writing things in, not suring where I was how I was, where I was looking at this concept from. And so above my desk, there's a series of post-it notes, and every post-it note is a scene. And there's one, two, three, there's more than 10 post-it notes on there, but they're all stuck above my desk. So I know when I do sit down and write and I decide, right, I'm going to write now, I can't go wrong because it's written above my head on post-it notes. And I feel like having something in the physical world around me is really useful because I mean, I'm sitting on my bed now filming this, I just look and I can see, okay, these are how many scenes that got to be written.
Mhm.
And they remind me.
That's actually a very, very intelligent way of writing, especially when you're like over in speaking of overcoming blocks and things. So if you're stuck with one thing, you can just jump to another post-it.
Yeah,
So that is really clever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And although I always feel hesitant to do something like that, I know it has worked. I know that I've done parts where I thought, I know what I want for this bit, but I know exactly how to write this bit.
Hmm.
And you can just leave a note for yourself and come back. And once you've written the second bit, you'll find yourself, well, did I even need that bit? Maybe.
Yeah.
And it's causing me a lot of, how do I say that? And really, you answer your own questions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very clever, for sure. How do you like the practice of the weekly walks?
See, I'm a natural because I walk all of the time every
Mm.
day anyway. So for me, it's something that's already in my routine. And I mean it's something that has always been part of my creative process and just me as a person.
Mhm.
Um, what I really liked is that put with the morning pages. So my routine on an average day looks like wake up, do morning pages, go for a walk, and then sorry about that. And every day that's my routine. So I write the morning page so I become aware of everything I'm thinking. And on that walk, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, I'm thinking about all of those things I said and all of those things I want for the day. And so I know when I get home, that's when I've got to execute it. So as soon as I walk back in that door, it's time to get going. I've had that break with nature. I've walked in this world. I know it's like, okay, right, I've got to get on with it now. How
Mhm.
about you?
Mm, I don't have a dog like you, so I don't have
Yeah,
to go out, but I go out every day.
yeah,
And right now it's actually tough because on school days, I can't do my 1 hour round because it just doesn't fit into the schedule. And when school's finished, then it's
yeah,
dark and
yeah,
it's not not where you would want to go in the dark.
yeah,
And so I actually had to improvise. And there were 2 days when I actually just managed around 9 o'clock in the evening to go out. And then I chose just the streets in the tiny town where I live, just walk the streets. And that was really interesting because as much as I dislike this town where I stranded, it is really beautiful. And it was really good for me to acknowledge that, to just really say, you know what, I really wish uh, I would not have ended up here for the pandemic, but there is beauty and I can appreciate it. So that was really beautiful.
yeah. And I think that's a great way of looking at it and having that appreciation because we easily put things down and we easily think, no, I don't like it. But if we think about it, why don't we like it? And is it that's the problem, or is it, you spending the pandemic in this place that's making you not like it rather than the
Yeah.
actual place? And I know lots of people that have said that. For example, I know my uncle, he lived in a flat and he was in there for a pandemic and he hated the place, he hated the flat. And he's moved now, and now he's looking back and he's thinking, well, actually that place was quite nice, that flat was really nice, and I only moved because I had to be in there all of the time, and you feel trapped then. And I think it's so easy to feel trapped. And I know I felt like I just want to get out, I need to go out into the world. But I think sometimes we take for granted what we have in front of us, and I think that's a great vision to have when you're creating art, because it's easy to think, well, there's no beauty in this, but of course there is. It might be it might be like those, um it might just be the cracks that you have to fill in with gold paint.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it reminds me of the artist date that you had last week when you went with the camera and
Yeah,
you went exactly the same route that you go every day. It is really a lot in the eyes and not in the thing itself. So,
yeah. And appreciating your place and where you are and what's around you is great because you feel a lot. not just safer, but happier and more aware when you do start to write.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to add for week 2?
I think we've covered an awful lot here.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that the thing I wrote when I when I reflected on things that I've wanted to do but I never really pursued was dancing, which to me I always want to laugh at, but because I love music, I was always dancing in the house. And when we used to go to, I don't know, pubs or bars or whatever, as a kid, I would get up and dance. And I spoke to my mum just randomly in the kitchen, and she'd see me dancing to music when I was drying up or, whatever. And what are you just? She's like, you should really do just dance classes. And I thought, you're saying this now. And I think for me, I always saw it as dance wouldn't be a very manly thing. I thought everyone judging me, but I don't think they really were. And speaking to my mum, I said, well, I don't think you thought I was very good. And she's like, oh, I thought you were a really talented dancer. And I was like, okay. So where did that come from then? And I didn't come from my family. And that's what I always felt from my family, that it was something that they didn't get or approve of. But
Mhm.
that's never been the case. And I think that's probably come from school or some other place. But that's a perception I've had about me being creative. It was always gone back to that point, that judgment.
Mhm.
But really, that judgment never came from that place anyway.
It sounds like you need to watch a couple of more episodes of Queer Eye.
Maybe.
Have the concept of masculinity
Yeah,
completely shaken up. Yeah.
yeah, I think
I,
so.
I, I do have an artist date lined up for next week that you would absolutely love. I'm not going to spoil it now,
Oh,
but
okay. I'm excited to hear about it.
yeah. Next week, week 3, is discovering a sense of perspective. I can't wait. And thanks for everybody who's watching now or later when it is in my library. Thank you, Joe, so much. This was such a beautiful conversation.
Thank you. It's so lovely to talk to you, and I hope you have an amazing week 3.